They say you never hear the bullet that kills you. You just feel the impact. For me, the impact didn't come from a loud bang or a dramatic scream. It came from a smile. A cold, detached smile that I didn't recognize on the face of the woman I'd shared a bed with for 3 years. I didn't argue. I didn't beg. I just took my keys off the counter, pocketed them, and walked out the door. That morning, my life was a meticulously organized blueprint. By noon, it was a pile of rubble. Looking back, the structural failure had started months ago. When you're an architect, like I am, you're trained to look for stress fractures. You look for the load-bearing walls that are bowing under pressure. But when it comes to love, you turn a blind eye. You ignore the water damage in the basement because you like the view from the balcony. It started with the late nights. Serena was a high-end real estate agent, and closing season was always chaotic. But this was different. It wasn't just the hours. It was the atmosphere she brought home. She used to come through the door exhausted, kicking off her heels and complaining about difficult clients. Now, she came home buzzing with an electric energy I couldn't touch. She smelled different, not like her usual vanilla and sandalwood, but like expensive scotch and a musk that definitely wasn't mine. Her phone, once tossed carelessly on the sofa, became an extension of her hand. It lived in her pocket, face down on the nightstand, or locked in the bathroom with her while she showered. I'm not a paranoid man. I don't check receipts. I don't track locations. Trust was the mortar holding us together, or so I thought. The breaking point came on a Tuesday. I was home early, nursing a migraine, sitting in the dark of the living room. Serena's iPad was on the coffee table, synced to her cloud account. She'd forgotten to turn off the message preview. The screen lit up. A single message from a contact saved as the portfolio. Miss you already. That hour in the executive suite wasn't enough. Leave the architect at home next time. My stomach didn't drop. It vanished. The portfolio. It was clever, professional, but the text preview cut off and the reality set in. When she walked in an hour later, she was humming. She went straight to the kitchen to pour herself a glass of Pinot Grigio. I watched her from the doorway. She looked radiant, flushed with a secret that was eating me alive. Who is the portfolio? I asked. My voice was steady, which surprised me. The humming stopped. She didn't drop the glass. She didn't gasp. She just froze, her back to me, for 3 seconds. Then she turned around. And there it was. That smile. It wasn't an apology. It was a relief. Sterling, she said, taking a slow sip of wine. My boss. And yes, before you ask, it's been going on since a merger 3 months ago. The casual cruelty of it took the air out of the room. Sterling? The guy who came to our house for Christmas dinner? The guy with a wife and 3 kids. Sterling is a visionary, Liam, she said, her voice dripping with a condescension I'd never heard before. He knows what he wants, and he takes it. He's building an empire. You're still drawing hypothetical buildings for imaginary clients. You're safe. I don't want safe anymore. I want power. 3 years. Reduced to a comparison of career trajectories. Does Victoria know? I asked. Victoria was Sterling's wife, the woman who actually owned the capital behind his development firm. Serena laughed. It was a harsh, jagged sound. Victoria is a dinosaur. She suspects, sure, but she won't do anything. She likes her lifestyle too much. And the team? Everyone knows Liam. They're happy for me. They know I deserve to be on the winning side. That hit harder than the infidelity. Our mutual friends. My college roommate, Marcus. Her best friend, Sarah. People we'd hosted for game nights. People we'd gone camping with. They knew, and they were laughing. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized the woman I loved wasn't there. Maybe she never was. I see, I said. Don't make a scene, Liam, she warned, her eyes narrowing. Don't be the pathetic ex who screams and breaks things. It's beneath you. You're right, I said. It is. I walked into the bedroom. I grabbed my go bag, a habit from traveling for site inspections. I threw in my laptop, my hard drive, and a few shirts. When I walked back out, She was leaning against the counter, looking bored. "Where are you going?" she asked, a flicker of uncertainty finally crossing her face. "Away from the wreckage," I said. "Keep the lease. I'm sure Sterling can cover your half now." I closed the door behind me. I didn't slam it. I just latched it. The sound of the lock clicking into place was the loudest sound I had ever heard. I drove until the city skyline was just a smudge of light in my rearview mirror. I checked into a roadside motel called the Pine View. It smelled of industrial cleaner and stale cigarettes, but it was quiet. I turned my phone off. For 48 hours, I just existed. I stared at the ceiling, replaying the last 3 years, looking for the red flags I had missed. They were everywhere. The changed passwords, the sudden work trips, the way she criticized my clothes, my ambition, my life. When I finally turned my phone back on, it nearly vibrated off the nightstand. 53 missed calls, 80 texts, social media notifications in the hundreds. I expected apologies. I expected explanations. What I found was a war zone. Serena hadn't just moved on. She had launched a preemptive strike. On Instagram, she had posted a black and white photo of herself looking out a window, teary-eyed. The caption was a masterpiece of fiction. Finally free, it takes so much strength to walk away from a controlling, emotionally abusive environment. I lived in fear of his temper for too long. Thank you to everyone who supported me in breaking the chains. I am a survivor. I felt the blood drain from my face. Below it, the comments were a flood of support. "So brave, babe. We always knew something was off about him. You're safe now." And there, right in the mix, was Marcus, my best friend since freshman year. "Proud of you for speaking your truth. Serena, we got your back." The betrayal was physical. It felt like being punched in the solar plexus. Then came the email from my HR department. Subject: mandatory meeting regarding workplace conduct. Serena had connections everywhere. She had spun a narrative that I was unstable, potentially violent. She was poisoning the well before I could even take a sip of water. I wanted to scream. I wanted to log on and type out a furious defense. I wanted to post the truth. But I stopped. I remembered her words. "Don't be the pathetic ex who screams." That's what she wanted. She wanted me to lash out. If I got angry, I proved her right. If I fought back with rage, I fit the villain role she had cast me in. I needed a different strategy. I needed to be an architect. I needed to look at the structure of her lies and find the weak point. I spent the next week living like a ghost. I worked remotely from coffee shops 3 towns over. I ignored the texts from concerned friends who were just fishing for gossip. I watched Serena's social media from a burner account. She was flying high. Dinners at 5-star restaurants. Tag with Sterling. Business meetings that looked more like dates. She was flaunting it, protected by the shield of her victimhood. But arrogance creates cracks. One afternoon, I was at a laundromat, folding my few remaining shirts when a woman walked in. She looked completely out of place among the humming dryers and linoleum floors. She was wearing a trench coat that cost more than my car, and her sunglasses were oversized and dark. She walked straight up to my folding table and took off her glasses. Her eyes were sharp, cold, and intelligent. "Hello, Liam," she said. It was Victoria, Sterling's wife, Mrs. Kensington. I said, putting down a sock, "I didn't think you frequented places like this." "I don't," she said, "but I hear you have a lot of free time, and we have a mutual problem." "If this is about Sterling," I said, guarding myself, "I'm not interested in drama." "Neither am I," she replied smoothly. "I'm interested in liquidation. May I buy you a coffee? The stuff in here smells like battery acid." We sat in a booth at a diner down the street. Victoria didn't touch her coffee. She just watched me. "My husband," she began, "is a cliché, the midlife crisis, the sports car, the younger, hungry mistress. It's boring, really, but he's sloppy. And your ex-girlfriend? She's greedy. She says she wants to build an empire." I muttered. "She wants my empire," Victoria corrected. "Sterling thinks he's the genius behind Kensington Developments, but he forgets who wrote the checks." My family built that company. He just manages a facade. She slid a manila envelope across the table. I know about the smear campaign against you, she said. I know they painted you as the abuser to cover their tracks. It's their standard operating procedure. Gaslight the partner, discredit them, and then play the victim so no one looks too closely at the timeline. Standard procedure? I asked, opening the envelope. You mean they've done this before? Sterling has. Serena is new to the game, but she's a quick study. Victoria pointed to a photo in the file. A young man, maybe 25. He looked tired. That is Elias, she said. He was Sterling's assistant 2 years ago. Sterling had an affair with Elias's fiancée, a receptionist at the firm. They pulled the same stunt. Accused Elias of harassment. Got him fired. Ruined his reputation so he wouldn't talk. Elias moved to Ohio. He works in a warehouse now. I looked at the photo. The pattern was undeniable. Why me? Why now? I asked. Because I'm tired, Liam, Victoria said, her voice dropping an octave. I've turned a blind eye for the sake of the stock price, for the sake of my children. But Sterling is getting reckless. He's using company funds to pay for Serena's consulting fees. He's leveraging assets that belong to my trust. He's not just cheating on me. He's stealing from me. She leaned in. I have the financial records. I have the emails. But I need the human element. I need the timeline. You have the text. You have the knowledge of when she was with him versus when she was working. Together, we don't just get a divorce. We get a demolition. I looked at Victoria. I saw the pain hidden behind the steel resolve. The annual Skyline Gala is in 2 weeks, she said. Sterling is announcing his new flagship project. He's planning to introduce Serena as the new VP of sales. That's bold, I said. It's suicide, she countered. I want you to be my guest. I'll be eaten alive, I said. Everyone there thinks I'm a monster. Let them think that. Victoria smiled. It was the first genuine expression I'd seen on her face. It makes the truth hurt so much more when it lands. The next 2 weeks were a blur of tactical planning. I felt less like an architect and more like a spy. I met with Elias via video call. He was hesitant at first, traumatized by what had happened to him. But when I told him about Serena and the abuser narrative, something in him snapped. They did the exact same thing to me, Elias said, his voice shaking. They told everyone I was stalking her. I lost everything, Liam. My career, my friends. You can get it back, I told him. Victoria is backing us. We have the receipts. We just need you to stand up. Elias agreed to write a sworn affidavit. He sent over his own cache of evidence. Threatening texts from Sterling, dismissal letters that made no sense. Meanwhile, Victoria was a surgeon. She quietly secured forensic accounting reports proving Sterling was funneling money into a shell company registered in Serena's name. It was labeled Interior Design Services, but the invoices were for dates, trips, and jewelry. As the gala approached, Serena's social media became frantic. She was posting daily about new beginnings and rising from the ashes. She was preening. I also received a text from Marcus. Hey man, heard you're still in town. Seriously, just leave. Don't make this harder on yourself. Serena is happy. Let it go. I didn't reply. I just screenshotted it and added it to the folder. The night of the gala arrived. I put on my tuxedo. One Serena used to say made me look stiff. I looked in the mirror. I didn't look stiff. I looked ready. Victoria picked me up in a black town car. She looked like a queen dressed for an execution. Ready? She asked. As I'll ever be, I replied. The venue was the penthouse of the new Kensington Tower, floor-to-ceiling glass, overlooking the city lights. It was a room full of sharks in expensive suits. When Victoria and I walked in, the silence rippled to the room like a shockwave. Conversations died mid-sentence. Heads turned. I saw Marcus near the bar. His jaw literally dropped. Serena was standing near the podium, holding a champagne flute. She was wearing a red dress, looking every bit the power player she wanted to be. Sterling was beside her, his hand possessively on her lower back. When Serena saw me, Her face went pale, then red. She marched over, abandoning her drink. "What are you doing here?" she hissed, keeping her voice low so the donors wouldn't hear. "You are not welcome. This is a private event." Victoria stepped forward, blocking Serena's path. "Actually," Victoria said, her voice carrying effortlessly, "he is my guest, and since my name is on the deed to this building, I believe he's quite welcome." Sterling hurried over, looking like a deer caught in headlights. "Victoria, darling, what is this? Why is he here? This is inappropriate." "I thought it was time for transparency." "Sterling," Victoria said, "we're celebrating the future, aren't we?" The tension in the room was thick enough to choke on. People were watching. Phones were coming out. "Security." Serena snapped, waving at a guard. "Remove him. He's a danger to me. I have a restraining order pending." "That's a lie," I said. My voice was calm, projecting across the silent room. "You don't have a restraining order. Serena, you have a PR strategy. Get him out." Sterling barked. "No," Victoria said. She walked to the podium. She tapped the microphone. The feedback screeched silenced a few remaining whispers. "Welcome, everyone," Victoria began. "Tonight, my husband wanted to announce a new direction for Kensington Developments. He wanted to introduce his new VP of Sales, Serena." She gestured to Serena, who looked ready to bolt. "But first," Victoria continued, "I think it's important we discuss the cost of doing business. We pride ourselves on integrity, which is why I'd like to share a brief presentation." She signaled to the AV technician. Victoria had paid him triple his rate an hour ago. The massive screen behind the stage flickered. Everyone expected architectural renderings. Instead, a timeline appeared. Slide 1, a time-stamped expense report. October 14th. Business dinner, $400. Next to it, a photo from Serena's private Instagram, obtained via subpoena. A selfie of her and Sterling in bed. Time-stamped October 14th, caption, "My King." The room gasped. Slide 2, a text thread between Serena and Sterling. Sterling, "How do we handle Liam?" Serena, "Easy. We say he's crazy. Jealousy looks like abuse if you squint hard enough. I'll post a crying video. The internet eats that stuff up." I saw Marcus turn away from the screen, looking physically ill. Slide 3, a video testimonial. It was Elias. "My name is Elias Vance. 2 years ago, Sterling Kensington and his mistress destroyed my reputation to cover up their affair. I was silenced, but I'm not silent anymore." Serena lunged for the laptop on the side table, trying to kill the feed. "Turn it off. It's fake. Deep fakes," she screamed. But the audio continued. It was a voice recording from the office security system, dating back 2 weeks. Serena's voice, Victoria's old news, Sterling. "Once we secure the board vote, we divorce her, take her shares, and she's left with nothing. And Liam? Liam is a nobody. He'll leave town with his tail between his legs." The recording ended. The silence in the room was absolute. Victoria looked down from the stage at her husband. Sterling was sweating, tugging at his collar. Serena was backed against the wall, looking for an exit that didn't exist. "You're right about one thing, Serena," Victoria said into Mike. "I am old news, which is why, effective immediately, I am stepping down as chairwoman." She paused. "And initiating a vote of no confidence in the CEO, based on gross misconduct and embezzlement of company funds. The board has already been briefed." She looked at Sterling. "You're fired, darling, and I'm freezing the assets. You can keep the lease on the condo, though. I hear the rent is due." The fallout wasn't immediate. It was a slow, grinding destruction that lasted months. The gala video went viral, not because I posted it, but because 50 other people in that room did. The hashtag Survivor Serena was hijacked and replaced with hashtag Serena Spin. The internet is a fickle beast. The same mob that wanted my head on a pike turned around and devoured Serena and Sterling with twice the ferocity. They hated being tricked. Sterling was ruined. The embezzlement charges were real. He didn't just lose his job. He lost his reputation. He was facing jail time for fraud. Serena fared worse in the court of public opinion. She tried to pivot, tried to claim Sterling manipulated her, but the text messages, where she plotted my destruction with cold calculation, were damning. She was blacklisted from every real estate firm in the city. I heard later that she moved back to her parents' house in a small town 3 states over. As for my friends, the apology tour was pathetic. Marcus tried to call me a week later. Bro, I had no idea. She was so convincing. You know I love you, right? I didn't block him. I just never replied. Indifference is a far greater punishment than anger. Victoria kept her word. She cleaned house at the company, reinstated Elias with massive settlement and a promotion, and even offered me a contract to design their new community center. I took the job. 6 months later, I was walking to the frame of the new building. The smell of sawdust and fresh rain was in the air. I checked my phone. No frantic texts. No tracking apps. Just a message from a woman I'd met at a bookstore recently. Coffee at 2? I promised not to talk about real estate. I smiled. A real smile. I looked out at the city skyline. I had lost 3 years of my life to a lie. I had lost friends who weren't really friends. I had been dragged through the mud. But as I stood there, looking at the steel beams rising from the concrete, I realized something. Sometimes, you have to demolish the whole building to fix the foundation. The rubble is messy. The noise is deafening. But once the dust settles, you have a clean slate. I put my phone in my pocket, grabbed my hard hat, and walked toward the future. It looked solid. It looked real. And for the first time in a long time, it was all mine.